Ladies and gentlemen, at the very outset, I would like to thank Dr. Siddharth Shah and Venkatesh Ram and the Executive Committee of the Hypertension Society of India for giving me this opportunity because I learned quite a lot in the last 2 days about hypertension. And there is an increasing in the epidemic of chronic kidney disease in all over the world, including the developing world, because of the increased incidence of obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. And the hypertension is a very important factor in not only in general population but in chronic kidney disease because it makes a progression of the kidney disease from stage 1 to stage 4 or ESRD and also contributes to cardiovascular morbidity and mortality. And hence it's a very important topic. Now, CKD denotes any renal abnormality persistent for more than 3 months or with or without renal failure, or a EGFR by Cockcroft-Gault formula less than 60 milliliter per minute, more than 3 months, if you are not able to do a 24-hour collection of urine protein and creatinine clearance. There are 5 stages of CKD. When you do a creatinine clearance and you find if it is below 120 by 90, it is stage 1, 60 to 99, 89 stage 2, 30, 59 stage 3, 15, 29 stage 4. Till that stage, there are not much of symptoms. Only in stage 4, you get the uremic symptoms. Hence, it's very important in high-risk cases like diabetes, hypertensive, and also with the family history of chronic kidney disease or in elderly, you have to do a serum creatinine and creatinine clearance. 1 in 10 individual walking in the world has got a creatinine more than 1.5 milligram. Actually, if you see the incidence of hypertension in the dialysis patient, it's about 90%. Actually, it increases from stage 1 CKD to stage 4 CKD. From 40%, it increases to 90%. Hypertension is a modifiable risk factor in the progression of CKD. There are many factors, dysglycemia, dyslipidemia, anemia, hyperhomocystinemia, etc. But then hypertension is a very important factor because it makes the progression of chronic kidney disease if you don't control the blood pressure properly with appropriate drugs. Well, you need to look at the adjusted relative risk. You find more the hypertension is more the progression. Less the hypertension, for example, even if it is 110 by 119, the progression of kidney disease is much less. Hypertension also calls to cardiovascular disease in CKD. There are many factors which cause cardiovascular disease in CKD, like dyslipidemia, dysglycemia, and smoking, physical inactivity. Because CKD is a potent cardiac manifestation. Like diabetes, you say there is a potent cardiac problem. CKD is a potent cardiac problem. Hypertension is the one which worsens the cardiovascular morbidity and mortality. Look at this. As the GFR decreases, the progression in chronic kidney disease, there is a progression in cardiovascular morbidity. Most of the cases of CKD do not die of renal failure. They die of cardiovascular morbidity and mortality, either a cerebrovascular disease or cardiovascular disease, or due to infection. The kidney and hypertension is whether the chicken has come first or the egg has come first. There is a intimate relationship. When you do not look after the hypertension, it causes chronic kidney disease. Most of the chronic disease, I already alluded that there is a hypertension. If you don't look after both, there is a progressive renal damage and there is ESRD, which leads to cardiovascular morbidity and mortality. Look at this slide. It is common in Kidney International. In the so-called pathophysiology of the primary hypertension itself, you find decreased excretion of sodium and water, and also increased renin-angiotensin-aldosterone axis plays a very important role. Besides the low nephron in a child born with a low birth weight and other heterogeneous things are also important in primary hypertension. When I was practicing in 70s and 80s, the glomerulonephritis, vasculitis were the commonest cause of chronic kidney disease. Today, when I dialyze 100 patients, I find 60% of them are diabetic and about 20 to 30% of them are hypertensive. So about 80 to 83% are diabetic and hypertensive. All the diabetic are also hypertensive. So you find that the diabetes and hypertension forms the major culprit in case of this is what that I find in my own practical experience. Well, hypertension and diabetic kidney disease already alluded. 40 to 50% of our type 2 diabetes already got hypertension. And 20 to 40% of impaired glucose tolerance have hypertension. Diabetes and hypertension increases the CV risk threefold. 65% of type 2 diabetes have systolic hypertension. Systolic hypertension is a strong predictor of cardiovascular events. One of the common causes of resistant hypertension, when you use 3 drugs, including a diuretic, you call it as resistant hypertension when the blood pressure doesn't. Look at the pathophysiology, it will be exactly like the pathophysiology of primary hypertension. One is the volume dependent, the other is the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone axis. These are the two main things. But there is also increased sympathetic nervous overactivity. Also, there is a severe reactive oxygen species, oxygen stress, giving rise to endothelial dysfunction. Also, there is inflammation. Actually, there are 3 topics on the World Congress in Vancouver on inflammation in the kidney, causing chronic kidney disease and hypertension. And also, the inhibition of sodium potassium ATPase is due to endogenous digitalis-like factor. PTH increases from the very beginning of decline in the GFR, and the PTH produces increased calcium into the vascular wall, and that is also one of the causes for hypertension in CKD. Well, angiotensin II is a villain in the hypertension in CKD, whether it is a diabetic disease or it is hypertension or primary renal disease. You find there is a hyperfiltration leading to increased single nephron GFR, mechanical stretch leading to increased amount of angiotensin II. Angiotensin II not only produces aldosterone and completes the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone axis, but also increases the cytokines and chemokines, and also converts the monocyte into macrophages. It produces endothelial, mesangial, and podocyte injury, giving rise to focal segmental glomerular sclerosis, as well as diffuse glomerular sclerosis and tubulointerstitial fibrosis. Well, one other important factor is asymmetrical dimethyl arginine. In a chronic kidney disease, because of the uremic toxins and dyslipidemia and diabetes, smoking, there is increased accumulation of asymmetrical dimethyl arginine, and that leads to not only hypertension, but also increases the endothelial dysfunction which is already there, and also increases the proteinuria, and also contributes to the cardiovascular morbidity and mortality. Why I am mentioning it, ACI-ARB reduces the ADMA level also, besides correcting the endothelial dysfunction. Well, look at Bakri's analysis. The lower the blood pressure, slower is the decline of the renal function. So you can prevent from stage 4, you can bring it to stage 3. And if it is in stage 1, you will not allow it to go into stage 2. Well, you talk about microalbuminuria always in Dr. Siddharth Shah's specialty, diabetes mellitus. But it is very important even in case of hypertension. One of the international survey where 22,000 patients have been analyzed with and without CKD, they found 53 to 71% of microalbuminuria. Microalbuminuria is a reliable indicator for endothelial dysfunction. Life study has shown that there is increase and 51% increase in the patients without diabetes mellitus, an hazard ratio for stroke if there is an increase in urine albumin creatine ratio. Annual screening of microalbumin hypertension also is very important. That is why ACA and ARB plays a very important role even in the pathogenesis of hypertension in CKD and also in the primary hypertension. Well, proteinuria is not just a marker of the kidney injury. It does produce progression in the kidney injury, but then kidney is a window to the vasculature, entire vasculature. And so what happens is microalbuminuria itself is the kidney's message on the microvasculature showing diffuse endothelial dysfunction. This leads to cardiovascular morbidity and mortality even in the microalbuminuria stage. The more the amount of albuminuria, more the incidence of cardiovascular morbidity. If there is a reduction in the kidney function, the morbidity is much more. Look at this. The targeted control in the KDIGO guideline is if it's a CKD with hypertension, it should be less than 130/80. I am happy that the Indian guideline also says the same thing. But if there is a massive proteinuria more than 1 gram, it should be reduced to 125/75. Only place where you have to worry is in an elderly person, you reduce the blood pressure below 120, I think you may develop a cerebrovascular disease. Otherwise, look at this MDRD study. If the mean arterial pressure is 92 millimeters of mercury and less, you delay the progression of the kidney disease by several years. And the ESRD also will be delayed by several years. Blocking the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone axis by ACA and ARB is the current gold standard in therapy in CKD hypertension. Well, why? Because the angiotensin II constricts the afferent and the efferent arterioles. But the efferent arteriole constriction is much more than the afferent, giving rise to glomerular hypertension and also the destruction of the mesangial endothelial cells. And what happens if you give a monotherapy of calcium channel blockers? It dilates both the vessels and increases the glomerular hypertension. And you find it's not only that, it's a very pleiotropic drug. Anti-cytokine, anti-inflammatory, reverses the endothelial dysfunction, increases the insulin sensitivity, filtration of protein across the glomerular capillary wall is reduced, normalizes the nephrin gene expression, restores glomerular basement membrane pore size, besides the other actions. So I think ACA and ARB are a pleiotropic drug and should be the first drug of choice to treat hypertension, particularly in CKD. Well, how do you block the renin-angiotensin system? You can block it at the ACA level. ACA is the best drug in a CKD because it not only reduces the blood pressure but increases the bradykinin, which is a vascular and cardiac protector. Maybe it may produce a side effect in 20% of the people. But then it only blocks the 60% of the angiotensin II, but 40% comes through alternate pathway by chymase and cathepsin. And so ARB will be better to have a complete blockage, particularly if they are ACA intolerant. And then both, if they are given for 1 or 2 months, there is not only aldosterone escape, but there is also renin escape. The best one will be the renin, direct renin inhibitor. 20 years afterwards, we got a direct renin inhibitor in the name of Aliscreen, which will block the angiotensinogen to convert it into angiotensin I. So actually, renin, direct renin inhibitors are almost very similar to ACA and ARB in reducing proteinuria and also in organ protection. Look at the evidence-based study, captopril study, European microalbuminuria captopril study, micro-hope trial, Bergamo nephrology, all reduce the not only hypertension but also doubling of serum creatinine from 24% to 75%. A progressive nephropathy has been reduced. And what about the ACA in non-diabetic renal disease? Even non-diabetic renal disease, APRI trial reduced the risk of doubling of serum creatinine by 53%. RAIN study, risk of doubling of serum creatinine and ESRD reduced by 50%. Greater renal protection in those with higher basal levels of proteinuria. African American study of kidney disease, the similar BP level control, ACA looked better than amlodipine. Well, what about the angiotensin receptor blocker, both in diabetic and non-diabetic? The landmark studies, renal trial, IDNT trial, IRMA trial, and the combination of cooperative trial, etc., and also life trial have shown that the ARBs reduce the doubling of serum creatinine, ESRD, and also prevention of diabetic nephropathy, and also cardiovascular morbidity and mortality. The stroke has been reduced in life trial. What about improvement of cardiovascular outcome? HOPE trial using ramipril has improved the cardio. IDNT, irbesartan, advanced perindopril, peace, trenderopil. AC and ARB not only prevent progression of CKD, but also reduce cardiovascular mortality. How do you optimize the RAS? You can use a combination of ARB with the DRI or ARB with mineralocorticoid receptor blockers like aldactone or eplerenone, or you can potentiate the action by using a combination of diuretic, but the combination has been well discussed yesterday by Hiremath, or you can give higher dose of ACA, like ramipril 40 milligram or perindopril 24 milligram, the telmisartan 240 milligram, irbesartan 90 milligram, 900 milligram. I think that is another way. Use of diuretic potentiates not only the reduction in the blood pressure, also reduces the proteinuria produced by ACA and ARB. Well, the combination of ACA ARB is a controversial point. It does reduce the blood pressure much more, also proteinuria much more. But then does it give rise to organ protection? There is no randomized controlled trials. But I took Dalton et al.'s meta-analysis of 8 trials. It finds usefulness in reducing proteinuria and the blood pressure much higher than the monotherapy. Well, if ACA-ARB does not reduce the blood pressure, adding eplerenone produces a reduction in the blood pressure. Not only the aldosterone antagonists reduce the blood pressure, but it reduces the proteinuria, reduces the apoptosis, reduces the fibrosis of the renal cell as well as the myocardial cell. That's why FEV study using eplerenone, RAL study using aldactone have found there is a reduction in the cardiovascular morbidity and mortality and reduction in the hospitalization. DRI on the 300 milligrams, the results of ALOFT, AVOID, altitude and ALA studies suggest that allosterine has positive effects on markers of cardiovascular and renal damage in patients with type 2 diabetes and nephropathy. Both congestive heart failure and left ventricular hypertrophy is reduced. Well, you already know about this particular slide that you have to use at least 3 drugs to have the target of 130 by 80. It's not only the ACE-ARB, you have to combine more drugs. I would like to say that add-on drug like bisoprolol or nebivolol, I would prefer carvedilol or nebivolol, or according to the comorbidity that existing in the CKD. In a severe hypertension, of course, you can also add long-acting calcium channel blockers, or clonidine, or in a resistant hypertension, aldosterone antagonist may reduce the blood pressure. If aldosterone antagonist doesn't reduce the blood pressure, you can use clonidine or minoxidil. Well, why do I prefer carvedilol or nebivolol when compared to other drugs? Because carvedilol is alpha-beta blocker. It produces a severe vasodilatation, powerful antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, increases the insulin sensitivity, reduces proteinuria, inhibits apoptosis, improves lipid profile. I am not saying that. Comet study and Gemini study says that. And nebivolol is almost very similar, except that there may be a slight increase in glucose and reduction in HDL. It's very minimal. Well, if I want to use the calcium channel blocker today, I would like to use a 4th generation calcium channel blocker, cilnidipine, because it not only blocks the L channel of the calcium channel, producing vasodilatation, but it also blocks the N channel. You find that there is a reduction in sympathetic surge, and also there is an increased renal blood flow, and also they reduce the amount of renin secretion, and hence it almost acts like a ACI. What about hypertension in ASRD, where the patients are on dialysis? Non-pharmacological methods by which that you reduce the volume overload, reduce it to dry weight, and also exercise itself will bring down the blood pressure to normal. But those severe hypertensive with CKD, the antihypertensive dose comes down if you bring the dry weight in a case of dialysis patient. Even in CKD, ESRD, the first drug of choice is ACI and ARB because it reduces the mortality and morbidity, preserves residual renal function, preserves vascular access, and also peritoneal membrane function, particularly in cases of peritoneal dialysis patients. Use of beta blockers may be necessary if there is a comorbid condition. And I would prefer non-dihydropyridine calcium channel blockers, particularly verapamil and diltiazem, which can reduce not only the blood pressure, reduce the proteinuria. But you've got to be careful with interdialytic hypotension. So you've got to train the patient and have a home record of the blood pressure. Home record of blood pressure will be much beneficial. And orthostatic hypertension is quite common in dialysis patients, and so a standing blood pressure checkup is very, very important after the dialysis is over. Well, what about the CKD-T? That's a post-transplant hypertension. Usually it is due to the presence of native kidney or the addition of cyclosporine and corticosteroids. The other causes are very rare. I think for that I use calcium channel blockers. It's better to non-dihydro, but you can use dihydropyridine calcium channel blockers because it reduces the renal artery resistance produced by the cyclosporine, and so it combats the cyclosporine toxicity on the kidney. And of course, if the BP is not at control, we can use beta-1 blockers, not atenolol. But then you add ACI-ARB about several months after the post-transplant follow-up, but 6 months or 1 year later, because it's not good to, because if it suddenly raises the serum creatinine, we won't know whether it is due to acute rejection or it is due to ACI-ARB. Well, I must have put this slide first, the lifestyle modification. Weight reduction by 10 kg, 5 kg reduction can reduce the blood pressure by 5 millimeters of mercury. Diet approach stop hypertension is a very important thing, particularly even in CKD patients who can reduce the blood pressure by 8 to 14 millimeters of mercury. Sodium reduction to 2.4 grams is a very important thing because it is an essential step in CKD. Physical activity is also very important. Moderation in alcohol. Smoking is a very, very important thing. You have to ask the patient to stop smoking because smoking produces glomerulosclerosis, tubulointerstitial fibrosis, renal atherosclerosis, and so it is not only produces various other complications. It does affect the kidney directly. Salt and control of fluid intake is essential. The reduction in salt intake not only reduces the volume and reduces the blood pressure, but also potentiates the antiproteinuric effect of ACI and ARB and non-dihydropyridine calcium channel blockers. Diuretic therapy, particularly furosemide and torsemide, if the GFR is less than 30 milliliter per minute, will improve the BP control, volume overload, also potentiate the antiproteinuric effect of ACI and ARB. Restrict fluid, don't put fluid in CKD. Exercise training is very important even in a dialysis patient. Exercise is beneficial irrespective of the stage of CKD and treatment modality. It increases the maximal exercise capacity, functional capacity, improves cardiac function, improves blood pressure control, improves insulin sensitivity, and improves survival. There is a review of exercise on cytokines. Actually, it is anti-inflammatory. There are about 20 advantages of exercise. I hope the doctors are doing the exercise regularly. Statin is a wonderful drug. Not only it reduces the LDL cholesterol, but it reduces proteinuria. It reduces the blood pressure. And so Why does it do? Because it's a pleiotropic drug. It's a anti-proliferative, anti-apoptic, anti-fibrotic, improves hemodynamics, antioxidative, stem cell activating effect, improves endothelial dysfunction, which exists in diabetes as well as in hypertension, which are important causes of CKD. Well, comprehensive strategy to renal protection, specific renal protective therapy, that is treating the underlying renal disease, SLE or polyarthritis or glomerular disease, immunosuppressive therapy and produce remission or at least prevent the progression. ACI and ARB to reduce the proteinuria less than at least 0.5 gram is very important. It will help in stopping the decline of GFR. What about the cardiorenal protection? Well, additional antihypertensive therapy to reduce the BP below 130/80, lipid lowering therapy, LDL cholesterol should be reduced to 100, less than 100, but in comorbidities it should be reduced below 70 milligrams per deciliter. And tight glycemic control, not by fasting and postprandial, hemoglobin A1C less than 6.5, correction of anemia with erythropoietin and IV iron sucrose to keep the hemoglobin at 12 grams is a very important step. Smoking cessation I already alluded to is a very important thing. Steno trial by Parving is a landmark trial about the multifactorial treatment. If you have controlled the dysglycemia, dyslipidemia and use ACI and a statin, you will find nephropathy is reduced by 61%, autonomic neuropathy reduced by 63%, retinopathy reduced by 58%, CVD reduced by 53%. Sir, I have put this slide not to show about renal denervation, but then want to tell you that there are a lot of afferent and efferent sympathetic nerves in the kidney. When there is an injury to the kidney, it sets impulses to the hypothalamus. From there, there is a surge of sympathetic nervous system. So in a CKD, there is not only renin-angiotensin system and endothelial dysfunction, there is a sympathetic surge. And so denervation of the nerves may help you, but then those people who are talking about non-pharmacological will cover it in greater detail. Hypertension is a common in CKD with increasing prevalence with its progression. Target control of BP below 130/80 is essential to reduce the cardiovascular disease and retard progression of CKD to ESRD, which throws an enormous burden not only on the family, but also on the state. Proteinuria signals diffuse endothelial dysfunction and is a sinister marker of increased cardiovascular disease, morbidity, and progressive renal damage. ACI should be the drug of choice even in later stages of CKD to block renin-angiotensin-aldosterone axis and for its antiproteinuric, anti-inflammatory, cardioprotective effects. Add-on antihypertensives of choice include beta-1 blockers, not atenolol, but beta-1 blockers like nebivolol, carvedilol, and non-hydropyridine CCB and cilnidipine. Lifestyle modification remain a cornerstone of management. Polypill therapy, Brenner said in one of the World Congress, polypill therapy is a must in a CKD. Statins, aspirin, antioxidants are important adjuvants to reduce the cardiovascular and cerebrovascular morbidity. I thank you very much for your patient attention.
Thank you, Professor Amrishan, for the excellent lecture. We are running short of time, so we shall have very short 2 questions. Yeah, please. Dr. Satyavan Sarma.
Excellent talk. But I want to raise a very important point, and that's about the combination of ARB and ACE inhibitors. To our mind, actually, this is extremely, if I not use the word dangerous, this is a very problematic combination. And in fact, if we look at the data of on-target trial, in which a ACE inhibitor was combined with an ARB, even the renal endpoints, the renal outcomes, hyperkalemia and the patients requiring dialysis was much more. So this combination, although reduces proteinuria, but this combination doesn't improve the outcomes. Your comments on that?
I agree with you because that's why I said that Dalton's trial of meta-analysis, I said, that is the one which shows the reduction in the blood pressure as well as the reduction in the proteinuria. But then organ protection, I would hesitate to use it in stage 4 and stage 5, the combination of ACI and ARB. But particularly when you are checking up once a month urea and creatinine, you can always check the potassium, and you can find particularly when there is a hyperkalemia, you can withdraw the whole thing. But I do use in stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3, a combination of the thing, and I find the reduction in the proteinuria is much more.
Actually, proteinuria is used by our renal colleagues. It's actually speaking, it's a surrogate marker. And none of the trials have really shown by using this combination and by reducing proteinuria, you are improving the outcomes. Venkat, your comment on this?
As Dr. Amaresan has said, that in so-called uncomplicated hypertension, if there is such an entity, I'm not sure, there is no benefit of using ACE plus ARB. In fact, as you mentioned, there is a disadvantage of azotemia and hypotension and occasional acute kidney injury. So that is not, in small studies with type 2 diabetes, the combination has been shown to reduce proteinuria dramatically. But again, no cardiovascular outcomes. Proteinuria additive effect. There is a study in kidney disease, non-diabetic kidney disease, IgA nephropathy, study called COOPERATE. In the COOPERATE, which is an IgA nephropathy with very profound proteinuria, the combination ACE plus ARB was better than either components in delaying the progression to ESRD in non-diabetic nephropathy and some surrogate cardiovascular points. So there is some role for combination, but appears to be very small segment that has to be identified.
Yes, exactly. I think I would completely agree with Dr. Venkatesh Ram on that particular point.
Comment. Of course, since morning we have been listening both in Dr. Siddharth Shah's talk and your talk to get the blood pressures below 130/80. I think there's a serious rethinking going on this. Number one, in a real chronic kidney disease, hypertensive, it's very difficult to bring it down. The point is whether it does anything good between, going below 130/80. And I'm told that in JNC 8 we're going to have some this thing, and that you should have blood pressure less than 140/90, maybe up to 130, but not below 130, not below 80. Any comments, Dr.?
In ESRD patients on dialysis, 140/90 is the objective actually. I only talked about till the stage of 4, you got to reduce it to below 130/80. But an elderly person, I think you should be very careful not to reduce the blood pressure below 120 systolic.
I think we are...
We'll just comment, Upendra, that is correct. I think the only problem we have to be very careful is, I always say, the issue in hypertension is hypertension, not hypotension. So that is a problem. So even if you have aggressive goals, we don't reach them. Either fortunately or unfortunately, we don't reach them. So I'm not worried about dangers of aggressive blood pressure control. If we reach even recommended, I'm more than happy. But you are correct. Under 130 or 80, either for CAD or CKD, there is no incremental benefit, but there is a potential of azotemia.
47% of hypertensive on the dialysis patient, they don't control the blood pressure at all. 47% of the patients. That's the Western statistics.
Thank you, Professor Ambaresan. We conclude the session over here.